I take the Interceptor outside and put it through its paces. Compare it to Retaliator, open it up for its secrets.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
So, last week was the how does it look out of the box, how does it feel out of the box. This week it's the how does it perform out of the box, and it's not looking good for the Interceptor. I went ahead and asked it to do a couple of things, and this is what we found. Number one, I went ahead and ran it through the Crony using the darts provided and put the results up on the screen. I only ran through about 3 clips of 10 before I pretty much figured out that this was a blaster that was suffering from schizophrenia. When I tried it on my own, I recognized a number of times darts just puffing out with barely anything behind them, as indicated by a number of darts over the 3 clips that couldn't break 33 feet per second coming out of the box, which is it's indicative of a greater problem than just a couple of bad darts. I mean, I ran through the entire 30 that the manufacturer provided, and consistently, first off, the blaster's performing somewhere in the 55 to 56 feet per second range, and that'd be fine if all of the darts were performing at that. But we have some darts roaring out. I couldn't even believe the 101.9. But I also had some high 70s and low 80 marks as well. So the blaster is wildly inconsistent, indicative of something that's probably a little bit more than just simply like dart quality or whatever. There's something functional going on that's preventing this blaster from performing in a proper fashion, and those performances were generated in Crony conditions inside a building, no wind, no tailwind, no headwind, or anything like that. So the Crony results right now just basically continue to reinforce what I would give this as just being a subpar, C blaster, even before we take it outside. But you asked me to take it outside, and so I did. Took it outside, and with the help of the eldest spawn, we put it through its paces.
You asked for it, you're getting it. Downrange shots. But I'm not just gonna shoot at things from like 8 feet away and call it good. No, we're gonna do science. Okay, science with a lowercase s, but science nonetheless. Very, very unreliable results that you will not be able to replicate at home. But hey, it's the 21st century in a world of alternate facts, so what can you do? We put the blaster on a ladder, we've leveled the ladder, we've leveled the blaster, we run out 75 feet of tape over what little grass I have in front of my house, so that there is a reduction in bouncage. But just in case there is bouncage, I have a handy scientific assistant, official first spawn. Yes, there he is, the first spawn of Mr. Curry. So, I guess we're going to learn 2 things. A, in a real world situation, how does this thing operate? How well can we expect the darts to go in a mild headwind, because that's what I'm facing, is a mild headwind. And also like what we might call an effective engagement range for the blaster right out of the box. We're going to put 10 downrange now through the system using the provided long distance. I had quotation marks around the words long distance. Air Warrior dart. So 10 normal through the system. Here we go. Oh, so sad. So sad. Alright, we're going to put another 10 through the system. 10 of the Air Warrior long distance darts, fighting a slight and variable headwind. Oh, oh, it's so sad. Oh, yes. That should be it.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Before we cut, I just want you to see, I didn't do this for the first 10. I just need you to see for the second 10 just what we're dealing with here. I mean, you're going to argue headwind or some nonsense like that, but this guy, he sputtered out at 16 feet. And this guy sputtered out at 20 feet. And the same is true when I show you the chronograph records. The chronograph records tell the tale that this is a wildly inaccurate blaster. That a lot of these darts, some of these darts got a distance, you know, in the 30 feet range, but they were benefiting from what might have been a headwind. I mean, the only thing I'm going to say about what we did here is that these darts all somehow managed to land in this very narrow swath of dirt, of grass and dirt, except for one dart. One dart, which got to rip-roaring 49 feet, sailed out into the street. This is the only one that had some kind of major sway to the left or to the right, and everything else.
The last one bounced at 50 feet.
Yeah, 50 feet, right?
Mm-hmm. Bounced backwards, though.
Well, you've got one right behind you there, bud.
Oh, never mind.
So we're talking, you know, forget anything that you're going to say about headwind or anything like that. These darts are not receiving any kind of appreciable boost from the system. All right, for comparison's sake, let's go ahead and send 10 standard Nerf Elite darts down through the system, and we'll see to what extent. Maybe it's the darts. Maybe if it had something different, it would work better. I don't have my hopes up, but we'll give it a shot. Just call that one out, Sean. 16? Excellent, 16 feet. All right. I got a foot for every dollar I spent on this blaster. Yeah. Hey, here we go. You ready for two?
Yeah, I'm ready for two.
Oh. What's interesting is, I mean, for all intent and purposes, the performance is just the same. We have a number that it's just 16 feet. Something happens in the system that it just gives you $1 a foot, and that's about that. Actually, what's kind of interesting is that with the Elite darts, we seem to have an effective range of, like, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the darts. So we've got this little cluster of darts kind of sitting around here at about 28 to 29 to 30 feet. So that's an interesting, like, you know, if these are standard darts, then the standard range for this blaster is 30 feet.
And outside we continue to see the same problems with the Interceptor. It is wildly inconsistent, and we can see those 30 foot per second shots as the darts just out. Yeah, I was fighting a slight headwind, but so are you when you're taking these things out and playing outside with them. So we needed to be able to figure out if there was an effective range of engagement. Like if you had this blaster and you were in a stock blaster scenario, what is your effective range of engagement? And with the number of what I will just simply call misfires, not jams, but clearly misfires, you have no idea. Are you going to hit something at 50 feet out, or is the best that you can do is throw darts at someone because you don't want to use this blaster at all? Which raises the question, and you saw me talking about it in the range tests, what's going on? What's, basically preventing this blaster from being at least a consistent off-the-shelf blaster? So I went ahead and cracked it open and took a look.
The internals of the Interceptor may give us some insight into why this blaster underperforms. There are a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, it butterflies very easily. All the parts come off with a small Phillips head screwdriver. The only thing even remotely tricky about this assembly is that there is a hidden screw underneath the shotgun grip. Nothing too tremendously mind-blowing. I think the first thing to keep in mind is that, well, actually, first of all, this is the heart of the power plant. It is a very squishy spring. I suspect that this thing will benefit tremendously from a spring upgrade, and it's really easy to undo the spring on this guy. There are a couple of surprises waiting for you. There's a dart friction plate, and it's spring powered, and this thing popped out on me when I opened up the shell. So full disclosure, I only think that that's where that goes. I remember it when I was looking down while I was feeding this thing. This spring wraps around and sits behind this rib on the shell. But just a spring replacement is the easiest thing to do. The spring sits in here. This has got an interesting little guide tube for the actual plunger rod. It slides through this white tube, and then this is the catch back here. Taking off this screw, removing this plate will release the catch mechanism. Then there's one more screw underneath that holds this in place. Take that second screw out. This guy comes out and you can swap a spring. No muss, no fuss. Very easy to do, and I think that this thing would benefit tremendously from just a spring upgrade. I think the second thing that's going on is I do not fully believe that the dart tooth gets out of the way of the dart fast enough. And my very poor attempt to demonstrate that is as follows. I'm going to go ahead and prime the blaster. This trigger loves to pop out, so we're going to hold that down. I'm going to prime the blaster. The assembly, the shotgun priming assembly, pushes the entire plunger tube back. It will engage the plunger head, pushing the plunger head and the plunger rod back until ultimately it catches back here. And then bringing this forward primes the blaster. Now there's a plastic rib on the other shell that holds this in place, because right now I could prime it if I want, but if the shell were intact, that lock is in place. Now, as I depress the trigger, the dart tooth begins to move, but only, hello, there we go. I begin to depress the trigger and the dart tooth starts to move, okay? It has moved to a 45-degree angle before the plunger tube can release. And as the trigger continues to move, that dart tooth continues to move out of the way and I still cannot get the plunger to release. At the point that I can now push the plunger head forward. That dart tooth did not fully extend. It was still partially out there. I would argue that the dart tooth is still, to a certain extent, in the way of the dart as it leaves the breech. And at the point where that happens, I think that's where we see our significantly reduced ranges. Now, the good news is we can fix that. The thing that's keeping the dart tooth from fully moving forward is a little, I just activated it, so whatever, is this piece of plastic right here. This is the dart, if this piece were gone, the dart tooth would always be open. It's being opened by a spring underneath. There's a spring. Oh, hello. I just spun it around. Did not mean to do that. Sorry. Oh, now I've disconnected the spring. Ah, oh, damn it. Okay. And actually, this will be just fine. This will be just fine. Just get that out of the way. This tooth right here, I feel, can be shaved down in increments until it is sufficiently reduced enough to do two things. A, get the dart tooth out of the way because it'll allow the dart tooth to completely open, and then B, still function in a way that it'll allow the dart tooth to be in its full upright position when it's initially loading darts into the breech. Having had an opportunity to think about this blaster for the last week, both what I thought about it out of the box and now having cracked it open, taken a look at its internals, running it through some slightly scientific experimentation, I really think that the part 3 video will be the I put in a new spring, I filed down the dart tooth mechanism a little bit just to figure out whether or not that would be enough to push this from a, at best, 50 FPS to, you know, something like an 80 FPS. I think that would be, for the amount of time it took, just a quick spring replacement. And I went through what meager spring supply I have, and the springs I have are either 2 or 3 rounds too long and much larger than the back plate can handle, or they're much shorter or have a smaller diameter. So I'm going to have to go out and hunt for a replacement spring. This spring seems to fall into a kind of a different category, or it falls into a category of blaster that I've never purchased. For all I know, it's a pretty common. So if you saw the spring and said, oh hey, that's a blah-de-blah spring, you know, this would be a great replacement, feel free to go ahead and put that in the comments down below, and I'll be more than happy to try to track that down and put that in part 3. Part 3 is not coming next week. I'm stepping back from this blaster. It might be a couple weeks before I sit down and, well, I don't know, Pan War 2 is coming up, and so maybe I want to have it ready for Pan War 2. Just to see if I can give it a shot at all. I don't know. Anyway, so I think the idea is, if you were, you know, final verdict, right? If you were looking at a Retaliator and an Interceptor, which one would you go for? And I would say pick up the Retaliator. And if you've already got 80 Retaliators, save the $20 for another sheet of polycarbonate or something. Unless you're excited about its looks and you know what you're getting into. You're like, Curry, don't be so mean to it. On sale at Kmart, $19. It's a great platform. You said it yourself. You're going to slap in a spring. You're going to work on the dart tooth. If you make it all of a sudden a really nifty, you know, super stock blaster, then don't be so mean. And you know, I may come back for part 3 and say, woo, check out what I did. But really, you know, I don't know. For the same amount of work, and the same, you know, for a little bit more money and the same amount of work, I can get a better blaster off the shelf and get better performances and better consistency. So again, you know, like last week hasn't changed. It's a lukewarm recommendation. If there's something else on the shelf and you buy it, you're doing yourself
no disservice. And if you pick it up, keep in mind that you're getting what you're paying for. And maybe 3 other people are going to put theirs out there and demonstrate that they work just fine. And maybe I bought a lemon. I'm fine with the concept that I got something off the shelf that wouldn't have passed quality control if somebody had looked at it. So who knows? Anyway, that's it. That's my final thoughts for right now on the Air Warriors Interceptor. But that's not the end for me and Air Warriors. I picked up a couple other blasters that hit the shelves this week, and I'll be taking a look at them and running through their paces and telling you what I think. In the meanwhile, feel free to leave comments in the comment section below. If you want to see other things happen to these blasters, like I went ahead and did the outside shooting because someone said, hey, you should do it. And I was like, okay, I did it. So if you want to see something else within reason, feel free to put in the comments down below. Have a grand week. Oh, that's right, Pan War 2. Pan War 2 is coming August, 13th. I think, 13th. Up in Centralia, Washington at Fort Borst. Make certain that if you are in the greater Pacific Northwest, you make that war. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, take care. We'll see y'all down the road. Bye.